Some films don't just release, they detonate. Is one of the rare explosions in cinema history. When David Fincher's adaptation of Chuck Palahniuk's novel hit the theaters in 1999, it polarized audiences and critics. Some called it dangerous, nihilistic, even irresponsible, but others recognized its brilliance, a film way ahead of its time. Though wasn't showered with Oscars, it did earn a BAFTA award for Best Editing, received nominations for Best Sound and Best Visual Effects. But the true greatness of this movie wasn't in the statues and trophies, but it was how it transformed modern cinema. Today, it's consistently ranked among the greatest films ever made. It sits on the countless top 100 lists. It has a place in Empire magazine's greatest movies of all time, and it continues to fuel debates, essays, and cultural think pieces. Why do you think this happens? Because it's more than a movie. It's a mirror, provocation, and a warning, one that goes sharper with every passing decade. In this episode of Decoding Cinema, we are going to break down not just the story, but the visual language, themes, the misunderstandings, and the legacy of why it's not about the fights, why it was misunderstood, and why it still matters in today's world of consumerism, identity crisis, and fragile masculinity. This is Decoding Cinema. Let's dive in. Before we even dive into the story of we need to talk about what makes David Fincher's filmmaking so unique, because this movie doesn't just tell its story, it shows it in ways the most directors wouldn't even attempt. Fincher is known for precision, for control, for using the camera not just as an observer but as a psychological weapon, and is one of the most daring experiments. Let's start with the camera movements. Notice how in the early parts of the film, when narrator is stuck in his mundane corporate life, the shots are cold, almost mechanical. His cubicle almost feels like a prison, and the camera reflects that by locking him into very rigid frames. But the moment the character of Tyler Durden enters the picture, everything changes. The camera starts to move with a kind of anarchic freedom. It swoops, it dives, it pans with intensities. It's as if the film itself is breaking free from the shackles of order and entering a state of chaos. And then there are also many one-ers in this film. Fincher loves long takes that force us to stay trapped with the characters. Look at the scene where the narrator describes his insomnia. The camera doesn't just show him walking through his apartment. Instead, it drifts through impossible spaces inside his trash can, through his fridge, even through the handle of a coffee pot. This is Fincher telling us that the narrator's world has no boundaries. His mind is already starting to fracture. It's not just a scene, it's visual storytelling of his mental state. And then there's the infamous IKEA nesting instant sequence. The narrator walks through his apartment while the camera transforms into a living IKEA catalog, prices and labels floating on screen, as if life itself is one giant shopping advertisement. It's stylish, it's funny, but it's also deeply sad. Fincher is mocking consumer culture visually, long before the story even says it loud. And of course, we cannot forget the subliminal shots. Before Tyler Durden officially appears in the story, Fincher flashes him on screen for just a single frame at different moments. In the office, at the hospital, in the copy room. As an audience, we barely notice it consciously, but subconsciously, it plants Tyler into our minds, just like he's being planted into the narrator's psyche. It's one of the most clever uses of editing in modern cinema. And then there's the basement fight. Notice how Fincher shoots them handheld, raw, messy. The punches feel pretty uncontrolled, the camera shakes, the lighting is harsh. Compare that to the earlier scenes in the office, where the shots were clean and stiff. The change in cinematography mirrors the change in narrator's state of mind, from order to chaos and from control to surrender. Every choice in the film, the camera movements, the visual effects, the editing tricks, is Fincher's way of putting us inside the narrator's head. We don't just watch his breakdown, we experience it. And that's why Before we even unpack the story of, we have to appreciate the visual language Fincher uses, because once you see it, you'll realize is a masterclass not just in storytelling but in filmmaking itself. Now that we've looked at how David Fincher uses filmmaking to tell the story, let's actually step inside the story itself, because on the surface may look like a movie about underground boxing matches, but in reality it's about something much darker and much deeper. It's about a man at a war with himself. Our protagonist, played brilliantly by Edward Norton, doesn't even have a name. He's simply the narrator, and that's not a mistake. His lack of a name is the first clue that he is an everyman. He could be me, he could be you watching the video, he could be any of us. By day, he's just a corporate employee, stuck in the endless loop of paperwork, airplane fights, and meaningless meetings. By night, he can't sleep, his insomnia is eating him alive. And here's where the first layer of the story begins: consumerism. The narrator's apartment is filled with IKEA furniture, catalog perfect decor, but there's no soul. I mean, he says it himself: I had everything a man could want, but it wasn't enough. This is David Fincher's way of showing us that in modern society, identity isn't built on who we are, but on what we own. And yet, the more he buys, the emptier he feels. The comfort of pain. And so, desperate for meaning, the narrator finds a bizarre form of therapy: support groups. He goes to meetings for cancer survivors, TB patients, and testicular cancer support. He doesn't even belong there, but when he cries in the arms of strangers, he finally feels something is real. It's absurd, it might look darkly funny, but it also reveals something chilling about the modern loneliness. Pain, and even someone else's pain, feels more real than the emptiness of his life. But then comes the character of Marla Singer, Helena Carter, in one of the most iconic roles. Marla is a mirror image of the narrator. He is also faking her way through the support groups, and her presence ruins it for him because he sees his own fraud reflected back. Marla is a chaos in human form: cigarette smoke, thrift store dresses, messy lipstick. She is not here to play by the society rules, and that terrifies him, but also attracts him, because deep down, Marla represents the part of himself he's trying to suppress, the part that doesn't care about rules. And then his apartment explodes, like literally explodes. All those perfect IKEA products gone in seconds. This is the turning point of the film. The death of the consumer identity. And from the ashes of the death of consumer identity comes someone new. We welcome the character of Tyler Durden. Brad Pitt's Tyler Durden is one of the most iconic characters in cinema. Charismatic, fearless, funny, brutally honest. He says everything we wish we could say, does everything we wish we could do. But here's the thing: Tyler isn't real. He's the narrator's alter ego. His repressed desires made flesh. Even the way Tyler is introduced tells us this. The first time we meet him, he literally appears in a subliminal flash. He's already haunting the edges of the narrator's mind before we see him fully formed. When the narrator and the character of Tyler Durden start Fight Club, it's not really about fighting. It's something else. It's about freedom. These men, trapped into soul-crushing jobs, finally feel alive when they're bleeding in a basement. Pain becomes their escape. The first rule of you do not talk about isn't just a catchy line. It's about secrecy, rebellion, brotherhood. It's about building an identity outside the corporate world. But of course, it's also incredibly dangerous. What starts as a therapy quickly becomes addiction, and soon it spirals into something much, much darker. As grows, it transforms into Project Mayhem, a full-blown anti-corporate terror group. And now, it's not just men punching each other, It's men blowing up credit card buildings, attacking the foundations of society. And here's where we see the true danger of Tyler Durden. He is not the narrator's alter ego, he is the fantasy of freedom taken too far. A warning about what happens when rebellion turns into fantasism, the twist and the collapse. And then comes one of the greatest twists in modern cinema. The narrator and Tyler Durden are the same person. The clues were always there in the movie, the flashes, the missed phone calls, the way no one talks to Tyler directly. When the narrator finally realizes the truth, it's not just shocking, it's tragic, because Tyler was never his savior. He was the original sickness of the narrator's character. The narrator, hand in hand with Marla, watches skyscrapers collapse to the sound of "Where is my mind?" It's apocalyptic, it's romantic, it's absurd, and it's one of the most unforgettable endings in movie history. Some see it as hopeful, he finally accepts himself, others see it as terrifying, the destruction of society. But maybe that's the point. Club doesn't give us answers, it gives us questions about who we are, what we believe, and what we are willing to destroy to feel alive.